Hi everyone, it's Ruby G. Welcome to Truth and Neurons. The common thread? Prosecutor Bill Thompson, who has quietly shaped the outcomes of multiple murder cases, including the Kohberger case, the Charles Capone trial, and the Charles Pat McMichael case. What emerges is a prosecutorial pattern that, from a forensic psychology perspective, shows signs of coercion, manipulation, and systemic pressure rather than due process.
And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. Business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders.
Final words from family and friends.
We have lost a friend, a mother, a sister, a grandmother, and someone that brought light into everyone's life. Charles brought darkness.
Rambling words, but no remorse today for a man convicted of killing his wife and then dumping her body in the Snake River. Rachel Anderson's body has never been found, but today Anderson's family told her killer he took what is most precious from their lives. In October of 2009, Anderson married convicted felon Charles Capone. Just 3 months later, she filed for divorce. And 3 months after that, April of 2010, well, that was the last time anyone would see Anderson alive. Despite never finding her body, Capone was charged with murder in 2013 and convicted late last year.
The conviction relied heavily on the testimony of David Stone, a former co-defendant who flipped and claimed he witnessed Capone strangle Anderson. Stone's credibility was heavily contested. The defense argued that his story changed multiple times and that he was incentivized to cooperate.
Capone broke his silence for the first time and read a 22-page statement. The common theme, that he had the facts and the court didn't do its job.
It's so frustrating to know that people aren't telling the truth, that people are looking for answers, and because they're not given all the answers, they're going to create the answers.
Meanwhile, Capone's own statements to police were thrown out by the court after the defense successfully argued constitutional violations, potentially due to psychological coercion during interrogation. What's more, Capone's defense claimed he was incapable of murder, though the specific argument remains unclear, whether it was based on mental health, cognitive limitations, or physical incapacity. The defense clearly employed forensic psychology principles to create reasonable doubt, and yet despite the absence of a body, despite a highly unreliable witness, Capone was convicted. The emotional weight of a missing person, Rachel Anderson's body was dumped in the Snake River and never recovered, was enough to sway the jury. In the Nathaniel Nisbet case, Thompson reduced what was originally a second-degree murder charge to voluntary manslaughter. Nisbet shot Charles Pat McMichael 3 times in the chest and received a sentence of just 2 years. This was not a one-off oversight. It reflects a deeper prosecutorial philosophy. avoid trial when possible, control the outcome through plea deals, and minimise the risk of public scrutiny. These are not signs of an impartial legal process. These are signs of a pattern. The incident occurred on November 10th at the Bel Air Mobile Park, where McMichael was assisting Nisbet's estranged wife in changing locks. Witnesses testified that McMichael forced his way in before being shot multiple times by Nisbet, despite being unarmed. McMichael's wife, Molly McMichael, who testified at the hearing, is the same DoorDash driver who claimed to have seen Brian Kohberger on King Road the night of the University of Idaho murders. Her credibility is questionable, as she has a known history of drug use and was visibly impaired during previous encounters. During a prior traffic stop captured on police body cam, Molly told an officer that she was friends with Bill Thompson, the latter county prosecutor, raising further concerns about bias and reliability in both the Nisbet and Kohberger case. Now we arrive at Brian Kohberger's case. From the beginning, it has been a media circus, but behind the scenes, psychological tactics are at play. The threat of the death penalty, a known coercive tool, hangs over Kohberger's head. Alternate perpetrator theories have been systematically excluded from the case, boxing in the defence. Reports of Kohberger's body language in court suggest stress, not guilt. And then came something stranger, a reported reference by Thompson to the Snake River. I don't believe he was simply insinuating that Kohberger may have thrown the knife in the river. I believe his words were carefully crafted to say much more. For most people, that might seem like an ordinary detail. But for those of us who've studied Thompson's record, that's a loaded reference. The Snake River is where Rachel Anderson's body was dumped in the Capone case. In forensic psychology, this type of comment could be seen as psychological leakage, a Freudian slip, or worse, an intimidation cue. Was it an unconscious association? Or a deliberate psychological tactic meant to rattle Kohberger? This is what I mean when I say that plea deals aren't always about guilt. They can also be about psychological survival. Kohberger agreed to a plea deal, so we must ask, is it justice or just a way to escape an inescapable psychological trap? From my perspective, I believe what we are seeing here is more than coincidence. It's a pattern of high-stakes plea bargaining used to control outcomes, suppress evidence, and avoid courtroom scrutiny. Whether it's Capone, McMichael, or Kohberger, the tactics are consistent. Unreliable witnesses, suppressed constitutional challenges, and psychological pressure applied until a plea is the only way out. In a justice system where the prosecutor controls not only the narrative but also the psychological space of the courtroom, we lose the balance our system is meant to preserve. Trials are avoided not for efficiency, but to maintain reputation, control, and conviction rates. That is not justice. That is strategy masquerading as law. So back to our original question. Did Brian Kohberger plead guilty because he did it, or because he had no psychological choice? This episode doesn't deliver a verdict, but it does raise the right questions. And as long as I'm hosting Truth and Neurons, we will keep asking those questions. Because forensic psychology isn't just about diagnosing the mind of the accused, it's also about holding the system accountable. That's all for today's episode of Truth and Neurons. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the ethics of media commentary in high-profile cases. Until next time, keep thinking critically and questioning everything. Cheers, bye.